I don't want to set the world on fire.
Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of The Foley of Man. My name is Chris, and with me here today,
Robert.
And today, we're coming at you live, but not live.
No, we're not live. This isn't live. We're just standing. That's the only thing that's different, is that we're standing.
Yeah. The
Well,
only
well,
thing that's
well,
different. The only thing.
We are also naked from the waist down. We are straight up Winnie the Pooh in it today to bring you the next episode
I
of...
thought we were talking about something different.
What do you mean?
We always record naked.
I'm sorry. In fairness, we're finally revealing that we've been naked for the recordings of all of these episodes. So, welcome back to The Foley of Man, where we review My Little Pony fanfiction that is blended with the world of Fallout, the video game. I usually say, let's do it right. It blends the world of Fallout and My Little Pony, and they come together and have little colts and fillies and, basically MLP Brony hentai, essentially. Right?
Knowing somber.
Right. I mean, tentacles, right? Tentacles are a thing in this world, so...
I mean, I guess, yeah.
Would it be the Fisher Pony's wife?
Yes.
The Fisher Pony's mare?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So, for this series, we are covering Fallout Equestria Project Horizons. I'm going to be like a politician. Because we're standing up now.
Read my lips. We're doing chapter 15.
That's right. I don't know what to do with my hands, because normally our hands are somewhere down on the table, or it's playing with a cup of coffee. And now it's like, I guess I'll just, have them hover awkwardly in front of me from time to time. So yes, we are covering Chapter 15 in the fanfiction Fallout Equestria Project Horizons. You'll also notice that we are wearing cans on our ears now, because in the last episode, Chris...
I don't know how to talk.
Yeah, was a little bit far from the mic. And I said, you know what, God damn it, let's just put it all together again, and please desperately bring some professionalism back to this charade.
Professionalism.
I know,
Professionalism.
Right? We are reviewing...
You fool!
We are reviewing My Little Pony fanfiction. How professional is... It's like that scene. You remember the bird cage? Where he's like, listen, we may be a drag show, and we're a good drag show. We could be a great drag show. But, not unless you put in the work, right? Right? And it's just like, we could be, right now, we're an okay podcast, but we could be a great podcast.
That was the weirdest, DC universe side story for Lex Luthor.
Interesting. Well, he just didn't know what to do after, Christopher Reeves had his accident.
Of course, yeah.
Kind of really fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
So, we are covering Chapter 15 in Fallout Equestria Project Horizons, written by Somber. Of course, this story was inspired by Fallout Equestria, which was written by K-Cat as well. But the topic of this, in particular, is going to be Project Horizons. We will make reference, obviously, if you are joining us for the first time. And I know everybody's thinking, wow, guys, 5 minutes, get into the meat of this. We will make references to some of the other fan fictions that we've read. But we usually do a pretty good job of, notating what we're talking about. So, I think that where we should start in Chapter 15 is with hatches.
Oh.
And specifically, how bullshit sci-fi hatches are. And what I'm wondering here is that if there was a purpose for this to be included in the story, right? There's a couple different themes I want to touch on here, because I think it's important for the rest of the story, right? In one way, is this a satirical critique that Somber is making on how ridiculous sci-fi doors are?
I think it could be as well in the game Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, because it uses Fallout 3's assets.
Yeah.
It says warning 2,500 pound PSI.
Right.
In the door. So it's like if that came down on you, it'd come down on you.
And I understand. So here's the deal. I get that in a Fallout setting that you're treating these stables / vaults like a ship. Right? In the event that one area is breached, the next could be sealed, and each door needs to be strong enough to sustain that. However, when we are thinking about most sci-fi ships, buildings, Futurama makes jokes about this all the time, right? The doors always go up. They always ascend up and down. But the one that's far less likely to crush you, because what we're referencing here is a character that Blackjack remembers being murdered by one of these doors.
That's why her name is Hatches.
Hatches, which is, we'll get into that as well. If you had doors that went from side to side, though, yes, you no longer have gravity in play to close them, if you're coming from up and below, gravity's not playing into it anyways.
Yep.
And gravity could play if you had a complex weight system that was actually moving them together, right? So if
counterbalance
right,
system.
if there was a failsafe where you had a power outage and you needed it to be locked down, just a counterweight that would close the doors. But so it is interesting that it would make way more sense to have doors that do this versus doors that could collapse and break a pony's spine.
Yeah, kill them in one of the worst ways possible.
So I do think I think it's interesting, worth pointing out, because it's almost like it's to build on the world, but it's kind of a satirical critique from Somber.
And it does develop a little bit of Blackjack's character, where she talks. We kind of keep reemphasizing the fact that the stable and the life within the stable kind of de-equinized the concept of life and death and the meaning and the weight of an individual's life.
And that's what I wanted to get to, right? There's two ways to look at it. It could be that, yes, it deponifies the individuals around you, and you understand that they're just meat bags that can be replaced. But it could also be a critique on how we deal with trauma. And them not even realizing that that's how they're dealing with trauma. Because Blackjack even says, I don't even remember her name. Mm-hmm. This is somebody I knew. This is somebody I grew up with. This is somebody I played cards with. I don't even remember her name. I just remember her as Hatches.
Yeah.
And the deponification there is a good point. But it's also how you deal with trauma, because that's an intensely traumatizing event. And everyone else just, like the security and the stable, the overmare, just sweep it under the rug. Well, we recycle their body, and then they become more synthesized apple juice, and you go about your business. But her wiping her brain of her memory other than that moment is a way of dealing with the trauma of the incident.
You also have to think about the fact that you're dealing with a mechanical infrastructure that you're having to interact with on the daily multiple times within a single hour. So the idea that any time you pass through a door could be the last moment you live.
That's terrifying.
Absolutely.
The one thing that you should not be afraid of in your life is a
door.
Windows, for sure, because there's always perverts outside watching you, right? I mean, that's...
all the way.
Always, yeah. Ask me how I know. So, moving on. I thought that was an interesting... It's an interesting point, because there's a reason why it's one of the first things we're talking about in the chapter. Because it sets up, we talk about a plant and then a payoff. I will also say that these fan fiction authors, have a really bad habit of their setup and payoff being in the exact same chapter versus setting up in chapter 3 and it paying off in chapter 32.
We talk about how movies are moving more toward, and this is obviously related, we talk about how the storylines in movies are becoming more gamified. The plots and the goals within them are based on objective-oriented.
And intensely episodic.
Yes.
Right. If you think about, so we've all watched TV shows. Don't pretend that you haven't. You know what I'm talking about. And in America, I should say this for our European listeners, a TV show traditionally here has like 24 episodes, right? I know in Europe it's like 6 episodes, but work with me here, okay? So you may have 4 episodes in the entire season that actually move along the overarching story. Mm-hmm. And then everything else is just filler. Yeah. And Fallout Equestria had some chapters like this that were just kind of filler.
Yeah.
And this one certainly is not. But I guess what I'm saying here is that it's tempting when you write episodically. Your setups and payoffs are going to be immediate.
Yeah. We had touched about this before, kind of dealing with the pacing that a fan fiction goes through, sure. Where each episode or each chapter, actually an episode, you can think of it that way, each chapter, which is an episode, paces itself based on how much the author wants to write within that chapter.
Sure.
Which is where you get and I'm going to throw shade on K-Cat here, the Shadow of the Ministries, which is one hell of an entire chapter. We covered it in 3 episodes of this show.
Well, and
it's massive.
You can tell all authors are struck by inspiration. And sometimes you can hear in chapters there's an eagerness to like they had the first 2/3 that they were writing really passionately, and then there's almost like okay, shit, how do I wrap this up? Or I'm getting kind of bored of this, I'm ready to move on to the next episode. and do this thing. And I don't want to say that it's not like that doesn't exist in the traditional literary world, but there's layers and layers of editors that typically say,
well, you also can deal with the fact that you can write the entire book from end to end, and so when you have that, your approach towards pacing with certain elements is going to be different.
Sure.
If you are writing chapter to chapter, it means that you are going to have to go into an issue where sometimes you'll think, I want this to happen. This totally makes sense to happen. It's going to look cool. It's going to make sense in the story, and it's going to be great. And you're going to start writing down the steps going to that thing happening, and then you realize you've diverged so off course that you aren't even going to hit that or even ever come back to it. So you're like, shit.
And so I will also just say, like, currently that's not what happens in this chapter, but it's one of those things.
A generalization with fan fiction.
You see these kind of quick setups and quick payoffs, right? Quick setup, payoff. So we begin with the deponification from this first vignette, because later in the story we get a first-hand account. We have several first-hand accounts of audio logs from P21's pit bug, right? And kind of revelations of things that are foundational to P21's character, and also his intense hatred of not just mares, but Blackjack specifically.
Yep.
So I want to come back to that. Again, I'm setting it up. It's going to pay off later.
In the one same episode.
Yeah. So, quick little summary as we're going to move along. Rampage, our new, what is her title? It's not Hunter. It's
Reaver.
not Reaper. Not Reaver. Reaper. Yeah, she's a Reaper, and she's saved Blackjack and Glory, Morning Glory, and they're on their way. And basically, it's just revealed that all of this shit that Blackjack has been taking, all these stimulants, all these drugs, Hydra, Buck, Stampede, Dash. But there was one more that was like that made you think you were healing, but you
Fixer.
actually weren't. Fixer, that's right. Yeah, the name is a huge misnomer. And she's just basically like on the verge of cardiac arrest, right? And they're also warning her that because of all that she's experienced, she could come across these innervation fields that would basically liquefy your insides. So something about these drugs makes your molecular structure unstable. It's probably from the Hydra.
Yeah, it's from the Hydra. It's explained the innervation fields, they kind of sap the natural magics as well as any kind of healing potions. I think we've gone over it before.
Because certain potions weren't effective in an area.
Yes, you would watch how a health potion would just like, you look at two health potions and one of them would be far more like brilliant in color than the other, and that's because the other one was in an innervation field that was like sucking the life force out of it. And so if you were on Hydra, which overrode the body's natural ability to heal itself, and you went into one of those fields, the Hydra would just shut down, your body would shut down, and Rampage,
your body literally stops making new cells because it's so dependent on it. And anyone who's gone through a period of taking sleeping pills to sleep and then you come off of those, it's like your body's like, I don't know what to do, man. I've been relying on this chemical that you've been giving me to shut down.
When I was growing up, my mother decided to put me on melatonin to help me sleep, and that's a natural chemical that your body releases when your eyes dilate. Amazingly, and so my teenage years were a whole bunch of sleeping at really, like, not only like the teenage odd hours, but like past that, like I would have like a like out of phase sleep cycle. Yeah.
So we basically, Glory is so pissed off at Blackjack and like, here you've been lying to me, and you're not smart, you're dumb, you're stupid. I can't believe you've been using all these things behind my back. And we also find out that Rampage is addicted to Mentals.
Yeah.
Yeah, like horribly addicted to Mentals. And
popping like candy.
Where have we seen that before?
Don't remember.
You don't?
No. We just never happened before.
Never happened before.
Entirely new.
Yeah, interesting. Just
Look,
so
if you start calling Rampage Little Pip, I can't forgive you.
Well, Rampage
and
Little Pip.
You were so good this episode, not calling Blackjack Little Pip.
Rampage and Little Pip are not analogous, but in this way they are similar. But Blackjack's addicted to drugs. Like it, let's call a spade a spade.
Mm-hmm.
But Rampage gets super defensive about that because she's an addict, but she's also wildly effective at what she does.
Yep.
We also find out that her armor is not power armor. It's just beautifully crafted, amazing armor, and that in size, she's very similar to Blackjack.
Yep.
And seems to have a dappled pattern to her
Red
fur.
stripes, yeah.
Red stripes, which is very unusual.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, they come to an innovation field, and Blackjack basically falls flat on her face, and says she's talking about feeling blood coming out of her nose and her ears, and saying
her eyes,
and crying tears that are way too thick to be tears.
Mm-hmm.
So they yank her back, and essentially it's like she's not going to make it. Mm-hmm. They've got to get her to is it flank that they're headed for?
Yep, they're going to flank.
They're going to flank, and to get her to flank, she basically has to take the last of the drugs just to basically get there. And even then, in her head, she's like, "I feel fine. This is great. I'm fine. I'm amazing. What are you talking about?" As I feel like I can't keep up with you right now. But she does make it there, and a new character is revealed in Rampage's mother, who's a doctor.
Scalpel.
Of sorts. Scalpel is the name? Okay,
Scalpel.
Good. I couldn't remember the name. I even went back and re-listened to the chapter, and I was like, where's the fucking name? They said it like twice.
I think that's actually a problem that's endemic to My Little Pony fan fictions, and is that because the pony names have to be so connected to an object or an aspect of the real world.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're connected to things rather than, ethereal ancient terms. You do run across that where a name will just fade into the background because you're like, it's so connected to their craft. Was it actually their craft? Is it something they were talking about else? What was their name?
Well, and this mare actually is Rampage's mom, right? It's not just some kind of nickname. You don't... Okay, whatever. She referred to her as mom.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great.
I like that you said in this chapter we learn a lot. We learn a lot about Rampage. You had known nothing yet.
I didn't say we learned a lot. I said we learned more, right? And previously we didn't know anything, and we really don't know anything about the Reavers, right?
Reapers.
Sorry,
I planted that one.
Yeah, you planted the seeds of doubt, and here they have
of
grown
Reavers
into a garden of bullshit. So, Scalpel is able to use the autodoc.
Yep.
To heal Blackjack, but there's some deep, hardcore damage that is essentially unhealable, right? So not only are we dealing with radiation, which they can take care of, right? And we're dealing with Innervation, right?
And taint.
And taint is the new thing, right?
Yep.
And Blackjack is like, well, what the hell is taint? And it's like, well... You see those radigators and all these other little, things?
That's what created that, and we don't know what it is.
Yeah, and you've got a shit ton of it in your body.
Yeah, enough to be a problem.
Yeah, and it's like, well, what can you do? Well, it's like all your organs are failing, so I'm going to have to use this autodoc like 5 times on you, which is insane. Because it's literally something with a healing talisman that's designed to fix ponies. Yeah. And it's going to have to be used multiple times. She even tells her, like... I'm charging you 30 times the normal amount.
Yeah.
Because of just how bad it is. But Blackjack reveals to her, like, are you also a part-time therapist? Because once again, Blackjack is dealing with all this stuff in her head and all these problems. And I'm trying to remember if at this point we've already heard the P21 audio logs.
Not yet. Well, some of them we have, but not the ones for this chapter.
Not the ones for this chapter. So what Blackjack reveals to Scalpel... It is that she raped P21.
Well, yes.
Back in the stable.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's supposed to be this big thing that Blackjack's really struggling with. And even Scalpel's like, and?
Yeah.
And Blackjack's, but it's not normal. It's not normal to rape. And she's like, I don't know.
To break into the real world, it'd be like going over to a medic in the Congo and being like, I raped somebody. And then being like,
okay.
Where do you think you are?
Scalpel was literally saying, she's like, from the number of mares that come through here, it seems very normal.
Yeah.
Right? And it just speaks to how bad things
are.
I
mean, you can imagine in that setting, just any kind of... And this is obviously something the games like to gloss over. I think Fallout 3 was originally going to have a lot more allusions to that, but they decided to nix it because Germany and Australia.
I was going to say Germany and Australia
they
tend to nick those things. But I do want to say, so Scalpel even says, I'm already charging you 30 times the amount. I guess I could be a therapist. And she pulls out 2 shot glasses and a bottle of Flying Pegasus. And it is Flying Pegasus, right?
Yes.
And
There's a what, Pegasus?
And she's like, do you think your drug-addicted patients should really be consuming alcohol? And she's like, considering all the shit that's going on in your body, alcohol is the least of my concerns right now.
That'll probably come straight out the second that she probably won't even be able to feel it because it'll just go straight into the the autodoc.
I know. And Scalpel even says, well, if you'd prefer, I can drink both shots. And she's like, should my doctor be drinking that much? And she's like, you think I would feel 2 shots? It's kind of like, I can handle my booze. So they're drinking in there and they're talking. So she is giving her some counsel, effectively, and it's revealed that Scalpel herself, she's a doctor. She's trying to do some good, right? But it's like, what is good, right? Do I help someone who's just going to go rape or murder someone else? If you are okay with somebody killing you, does that give you permission to go kill whoever you want because you'd be okay with somebody doing it to you?
I guess this is ultimately the combative nature of chaotic good versus lawful good. It's like, or even neutral good,
right.
Where I described this probably not on the podcast before, but I made a character which was chaotic good. My description for chaotic good was they did anything and everything in that moment which immediately seemed to improve the situation, regardless of the consequence later on.
Right.
And so when you approach each situation, you have to think about the consequences and the long-term ramifications of what you're doing. I saved this person, they go kill someone. Are you complicit in their murder, kind of thing? And didn't the Minority Report cover something akin to that?
I don't know.
Yeah, a few different movies. I think Wanted.
Minority Report was all about future crime.
Yeah, but that's what they kind of talked about. Is like, well, this person didn't kill anyone. Yeah,
I was gonna say, didn't they take it to the point where it's like this baby's gonna kill someone one day?
I think that was we started like could you actually not prevent it in a way that isn't literally like
murder?
Yeah,
just murdering them before they murder someone else.
Yeah, well, it
does raise an interesting question. So, moving on from that, there is kind of a new resolve where Blackjack's like, well, let me do some good here. I need to do some good, and. Do you want to talk about Stable 69?
I mean,
because is that where she gets the audio logs taken care of? I can't remember where she. This sounds so bad, but anyways, if there's anything you want to touch on Stable 69, we can. I'm not super interested in it.
It's. I mean, the background's interesting in the fact that it was just like a chemistry experiment. It was like a massive chemistry lab. It was just filled with a whole bunch of chemicals and no amount of entertainment. And then somebody decided to.
It is interesting the number of stables in this world that are fucked.
Oh yeah,
right.
Well,
like, what were the ministries doing?
Let's think about it. Well, the ministries weren't related. Remember, it was all Scootaloo's thing. Yeah. Well, think about it this way: the movie Biodome. Let's talk about that for a second.
Sorry, the Pauly Shore epic. Biodome. Was that Stephen Baldwin too? Was it Pauly Shore and Stephen Baldwin?
I think I saw the movie when I was like 16, and that's it. So it's been a while. The concept to any kind of biodome is that if you encapsulate an entire system, any system, and it doesn't matter how you describe that system, but you create a closed loop system. The amount of granularity that you have to monitor for that system to continue and perpetuate into ad infinitum is so high that the possibility of any random variable going wrong and destroying the whole thing just goes straight up. And that's just how it works, is that you create a system where nothing can escape.
Yeah. It is interesting with Stable 69 that we find that there were a tremendous amount of the current drugs that are being sold were developed in the stable because they had so many chemicals.
Yeah.
And it's implied, is it Dash that's made from yak dung?
No, it's not yaks. Though they didn't exist in the show at this point, but they do actually exist. They come from Yak-Yakistan.
Of course. We've talked about Yak-Yakistan before. And how they talk dumb.
Yes, because Yona. From our other show, which you should check out, which is The
Folly of Man Prey, which is another fan fiction written by K-Cat that combines the world of My Little Pony and the video game Prey. Not the weird one with the Native American, the weird one with the space aliens and the Asians.
Yeah. Morgan Yu. Which, is it really Morgan Yu? Does anything matter? Does the whole game just end up being this big diatribe for fail? I hate the ending of that. I hate the ending of the game. Anyway.
Don't tell K-Cat.
I already told K-Cat I hate the ending of that game because
Don't remind her.
it ruins the entire game. Anyway,
I hate things that end with, is this? Is this? Does anything matter? Does what matter? It's like, God damn it!
it was a dream the entire time.
Oh, fuck you!
I hate those, and that's what it does, and it's like, God damn it.
So,
Anyway, bringing it back, it's Brahmandung, which is actually from
that's right.
Fallout.
That's right.
Well, it's from Fallout, where they actually described the Brahmandung is actually what's used to create Jet.
Jet, yep.
It is described in Fallout 2 that one of the guys. I said Fallout 2 or Fallout 1? It's Fallout 1.
Wasn't it developed by some weird boy genius, too?
The thing is, the guy who claims to have invented it is a chronic liar, and he chronically lies throughout the entire thing. So whether or not he actually developed it is a little up for debate.
Yeah.
The only thing that they did that Bethesda did wrong, and I don't remember who, but somebody at Bethesda actually did admit fault for this, is in Fallout 3 you can find Jet in pre-war containers.
Right.
And they're like, we really overdid the whole Jet thing in the game. It shouldn't have been.
No.
No.
You know what's funny? In all the Fallout games I've ever played, I've never used a drug. Not once.
I did in Fallout 4 when I did like a super hardcore playthrough. Just because, is it Jet? Which one is the one that actually slows down time?
Jet, that's Jet.
Yeah, I did that because that was super useful.
Right, but it's just so funny.
They're great for trading.
I'm bad in games about not using resources that are given to me, and there's a whole thing behind that. If people are given things so that they have to use them sparingly, they'll never use them.
Yeah,
I'm going to save.
but I might need them later.
I'm going to save it for the final boss, and then you don't use it for the final boss.
Well, you use it for the final boss, but you have to be like, well, is this the final phase?
Yeah.
Should I have to wait until I use it later?
It's an interesting point. There aren't final bosses in the Fallout games.
Fallout 2, Fallout 1.
Yeah.
Fallout 1 was a little more of a cop-out.
Those games are very much older.
Well, they're also comparing Fallouts 1 and 2, and I'm going to say this until I turn blue in the face, to any of the 3D Fallouts that came after, is unfair to both because it's an isographic turn-based real-time strategy game with squad kind of combat versus a RPG first-person shooter. It's just completely different.
But it is an interesting point that we've moved past the final boss in a lot of games.
Yeah.
Obviously, your traditional platformers still tend to have that, but our RPGs don't. But that's not true. Even Skyrim had bosses and final bosses.
It really depends. I think what it is you always want to create, and this is more of a lean on developers, you always want to create the next big thing. You want to create the next big innovation. And you always want it to be something that's not like anyone else. And so when it comes to a final boss, well, having a final boss is so other games. Let's not do that. Let's in fact have a quick time event in which you press a whole bunch of buttons that you can just keep doing over and over and over again and then just win.
Yeah.
That was a phase for a while. Anybody remember QuickTime events? That's still a thing. I hate those.
They still are a thing, particularly for French developers and for the what's that awful studio that did the
David Cage is a hack.
Yeah, David Cage, but
sexist hack.
I was thinking
who
more
keeps
about
convincing the people that he's not sexist and is like, what are all the women in his games? Rape objects who turn into nannies for the main protagonist. Yeah. Every single fucking game.
So, after Stable 69, let's get to the audio logs for P21. We are revealed through some old audio logs from P21's Pip-Buck that he had a bad habit of trying to escape and also trying to get a real education, which heaven forbid a cult tried to do that because he always wanted to be a teacher. We also find out that he's come across blackjack many times. But worse still, he and his male lover were trying to escape, and his lover attacked Blackjack, and Blackjack beat him to death, and did so callously, carelessly, and with so nonchalantly.
Yep.
Didn't just subdue him.
Damn it, I damaged the goods.
I damaged the goods. And something about that, based on what we already know about Blackjack,
and taking it back to,
seems wildly out of character.
Well, I think what you could
because she was a bad security guard, and she was pissed off at other security guards beating people up, and it's something something about it doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit.
I will actually relate this to the allegory of the cave, right? So you think the world is one way.
It's always the fucking cave with you. We always go back to the cave.
Do we?
You've mentioned it about a half dozen times in the show.
Maybe. I mean, we've had so many episodes.
Yeah. And I assume you mean Plato's the cave, not, Mumford and Sons the cave.
No, not the man cave. In that you're so blinded by...
It is Plato, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Plato was the one who thought that people were born with knowledge, and you just kind of recollected it.
But I thought Plato was the thing that you put in an extruder.
Yes.
Yeah, the philosopher Plato.
Well, that's what they did to him.
Oh, the luckiest of you. Sorry, a few of you will be pushed through a fine mesh sieve. They will be the luckiest of them all.
Yeah. Pushed through a fine metal screen for your planet.
Yes.
But yeah, no. You could say that her having that awakening related to her coming to terms with this, because when you are in the situation where life doesn't matter and you're just focused on the day-to-day.
But then why was she so merciful when she came across P21? Like,
I don't know.
Also, why did she not remember any of this? I mean, I get that it's just property, but it's just like... It's
the Freudian block that prevents you from remembering how much you want to have sex with your mother.
I'm going to hammer this. It's very inconsistent.
Oh, yeah.
And I get hiding some memories from trauma, but there's just something about it that seems very...
There's a lot here. Right. There is a lot here.
Like, think about how pissed off she was at the big... Daisy, right? At her treatment. Blackjack certainly knew what they did to the stallions. I just don't... There's just something about it that doesn't seem like her.
Well, I mean, to actually kind of agree with you completely... She seems to have this recollection of the individuals and what they did and who they were and everything about them that seems to be so fitting, except for P21.
Right. Who she's now had encounters with a half dozen times.
Yeah. Somber, when you do the rewrite for the entirety of Project Horizons, you'll have to remember this.
No, but I get it. And once again, everybody's bi. Everybody's gay, everybody's whatever. It's
lascivious.
It's like sexuality is just it is an arrow and the target keeps moving, right?
I mean,
I only mention it because it's a trope. Ultimately, I don't care, but it's like, is every character in this? I don't know. It's just something about it strikes you as
that would be an interesting social. I don't even know how to call it a social experiment, but the concept of what human sexuality means in a life or death, like high risk scenario, when you put it onto a society which had previously been very open. Like, obviously, when you put it onto a society which was closed, they're going to remain that way. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But if you put it onto a society that was very open in that regard, how did they...
It is very interesting as well. If we look at the source text, right? My Little Pony is completely asexual as a source text. It's not sexual.
Yeah.
Fallout, ultimately, is not particularly sexual either.
Yeah.
There are brothels that you can visit. There are...
Women you can sleep with?
Yes.
There is Dukov's place.
But it's not a major facet.
Yeah.
It's explored more in this fan fiction than it is in the games.
Yeah.
Rape is not a part of the story, as you mentioned before, right? Mm. Because, they want it to get into certain countries.
Yeah, markets.
But it seems hypersexualized based on the source text. And again, none of that stuff bothers me because it's more true to life, right?
Yeah.
It is just very interesting that it seems to creep its way in. And I know everybody's going to say, oh, Robert, you're such a prude. I'm not a prude. I just think it's an interesting question. It is interesting for us to discuss.
And I will mention this, and this will come up more later, but I couldn't tell you when because I don't remember the exact points which they happen. But at one point, later on in the story, either when Somber finished it or near the end, Somber finally admitted, okay, I get it. I'm just horny.
Yeah.
And it's coming through very heavily in the story, and I apologize. I'm just going to have to keep going as it is.
And I don't know where that stems from. There's a deep psychology to the Brony fandom, right? Mm-hmm. And that's totally fine because everyone's consenting, everybody's having a good time. You do you, right? You know, I'm very libertarian in that regard. As everyone's consenting and everybody's happy, do what you want, right? Just don't shit on my lawn, right? Or send me pictures. I don't necessarily need to see that, right? But it is fascinating. It is fascinating. There's an attempt to recapture something that is lost from the childhood. And then fuck it, right? You know?
Well, I think what it is, and I've made this connection, if not we've made this connection several times, and it's Lolita. So when you are developing into an adult, when you're going through the puberty stage and you start having those feelings, you will start to attach those feelings to those things that are around you. And we talk about how modern generations are so heavily influenced by media of various kind, be it stories, television, and everything else, visual media, that we can impart that onto those things when we are at that age. Sure. And we were just making the joke earlier about the Lion King and the Nala face.
Right, the ship that launched 1,000 furries.
Yeah.
Well, and if you talk to furries, they'll openly admit what that did to them.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that in particular was such a triggering event. I
am so glad that did not awaken anything inside of me.
I know. Well, and to our furry brethren and sisters, you know, more power to you. Mm-hmm. But, like, it came from somewhere, right?
Yeah. Like, I think that's where it came from. Is it's just very heavily visual media.
I hate to use the term deviant behavior, but it is a deviation from what is averaged behavior, right?
From evolutionary behavior, absolutely.
Sure. Well, and it's also something that would have been very difficult to do a long time ago. Mm-hmm. You'd have to wear a big rabbit mask and stick a cotton ball in your ass or whatever.
The island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah. Anyways, I mentioned this. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the memory because it doesn't change. Like, so in this chapter we have revealed that not only did Blackjack rape P21, she also murdered his lover.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, good reason for him to want to kill you. And she's like, I just want to give him a gun, right? He needs to make the decision, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I do deserve to die because I'm a piece of shit.
Well, what happens is she's reliving the experience through the memory of the recording while she's incapacitated physically by the autodoc, and she starts remembering the experience as it happens.
Yeah.
And so when the audio log clicks off, she remembers the conversation where B-21 said, "If I had the means to kill you, I would."
Sure.
Or something to that effect. And so she's like, okay, now I have to get him a gun.
I think what we're seeing here, right? So you know how we've talked about with kind of the Brony fandom at large, that it seems to be a response to trauma in a way. And I don't want to get too psychological here. But this book, more than Fallout Equestria, tends to deal with different types of trauma. For instance, Blackjack's loss of memory, it's not just from being hit on the head. It seems to be to compartmentalize to hide traumatic events.
Yeah.
Right? Which is tough for us as the reader/listener because things are being revealed to us about a character that we thought we already understood. A character that seems to forget things that they've already done.
Yeah.
Like if you'd murdered somebody in cold blood accidentally, I mean, maybe whatever helps you sleep at night. But I think what we're seeing in this chapter in particular is that there's a lot of shit that's just been buried that we're digging up as we go along.
I think ultimately the question is, when it comes to that, is it, and this is more general, obviously stepping back from even the fact that it's a fan fiction in general, but is it more that it serves as a convenience to the story or that it develops the character?
Yeah.
And this is more, again, this is stepping back from the character and everything. It's like, if you are ever doing this, if you're ever, as a writer, performing this, you have to ask yourself, is this just a matter of convenience? I don't think it is for this. Because
Sure.
Somber obviously wants to connect the two characters more.
And I don't want to say obviously, but it seems like this is where Somber was building up to all along, right?
Exactly.
Was building up to, knew that this is why P21 hated Blackjack. But there's things that happened in between that are out of character for Blackjack. And if that was the plan all along.
Especially out of character for both, based on their... if they had been separated, because obviously they're separated during this until the ending, if they had been separated earlier on, might come across a little more genuinely. But the fact that up until this point they had been opposed to each other but connected,
Yeah.
it's like it's definitely like P21. This is the person who is effectively your devil, your demon throughout your entire life. And he kept saying, "I'll shoot you if you give me a gun," but he had explosives. He could have killed her.
In fairness, he did set a grenade off really close to her.
Yes, but I mean, like, intentionally.
I understand. If he had wanted to kill her, he had ample opportunity to do so.
Again, more notes for when you do the entire rewrite.
No. And the criticisms and the observations, it's more just, it's seeking explanation.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's what we're here to do, is to peel back the layers of the onion and see what's going on. Now, you've already read the story. And so a lot of what I'm doing is I'm trudging through this marsh as we go. You already know what's on the other side. You know, I don't know, I'm going to hit a tar pit or a sinkhole or an alligator, and probably all of them on the way. So, Blackjack, in all of this, in the therapy, in the trauma, in the realizing what she's done, is faced with the result of, well, do you sit here and die and get punished for what you've done, or do you do some good?
Or do you stand up and be a man?
Mayor. Stand up and be a mayor. And she decides to stand up and be a mayor and wants to do some good. She decides that she wants to clean out a local den, a hive, where they're producing these drugs. And where there's been some...
she's getting rid of the dealers because, this is actually explained when she goes to Stable 69, the dealers are effectively undercutting 69's ability to sell the drugs. And so they're the ones who are actually kind of feeding all of the strung out addicts, and they're the ones who are kind of doing all this.
Whereas Stable 69 is giving them a place to do it, to be safe.
Yeah. Effectively just a, what's the term
they're,
for
they're a place that
opium
provides
dens?
They're a place that provides clean needles, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if you're going to shoot up heroin, at least use clean needles. Come take needles, right?
Yep.
So
Just don't leave them in grocery bags in the bathroom, so that when somebody cleans it up, it goes into their skin and they have to spend the next 5 years of their life going to the doctor every couple of months. I knew somebody like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Pretty bad.
so
Pretty bad.
so by taking out the dealers, it actually can turn more people towards cleaning themselves.
Sure. So anyways, so we get to this place, and this is one of those action sequences. We'll just kind of summarize. It's an old fireworks factory, and we're getting we come across some notes between Pinkie Pie and the manufacturer, and an arms manufacturer, talking about ammonium perchlorate.
Yep.
Was that what it was? And how,
Rayburn.
Right. And obviously all of us are seeing this like, oh, there's going to be a big boom at the end of this, but it turns out that they have captured a Hydra, have dumped it into taint.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's taint that they've dumped it into, pure taint. They're pouring chemicals into this vat that the Hydra lives in, and they're essentially using it to make more Hydra.
And feeding slaves to it to keep it
Happy.
placated.
Yeah, placated. And it's just, I mean, when you realize the magics of Hydra, because Hydra was developed for Earth ponies, and I suppose Pegasi, the non-unicorn ponies, because the unicorn ponies have healing magics, and in the Wasteland, there's very few of those left. There's very few healers at all, which makes
healing magic is not something which is inherent to the unicorn. It has to be learned and taught.
Well, and we always forget this because Blackjack doesn't use it very often lately in the story. But she's a unicorn mayor, but she's very bad at magic. She basically can do telekinesis, and she's developed a way to use a telekinesis bullet to blow people's heads up. But anyways, so they go in, guns blazing, sort of. They sneak in, start things, and it's like, hey, you need to, stop this shit that you're doing. And Glory and Rampage comes along to help, which is again like, here's this Reaper who's suddenly, altruistic, but basically kind of like, I'm bored, right? I want to go fuck shit up. You're interesting. This is a new kick.
She is entertained by Blackjack and her shenanigans enough to be different.
I get the feeling that Rampage is going to be playing a much bigger role in the story. Like, I don't think that she's just here to chill for a chapter or two, right? So, anyways, fighting happens. It really doesn't matter who's fighting who. It's this whole group of, crazies that are and they're shooting themselves full of drugs to fight Blackjack and in Sats. which normally gives her a leg up on people. They're moving fast enough that she can't keep up in sats, and she's getting her ass handed to her.
Yep.
And then, of course, the Hydra gets loose, which is bad, not great. And so Glory goes to save some of the slaves and to free them. And Rampage starts fighting the Hydra, and the Hydra's like clamped onto her body, literally trying to like eat her alive. And she's
Through
just,
the metal armor.
Yep, she's just spinning and cutting its mouth up. And again, it's a Hydra, so it's got heads that can, keep popping up. But I seem to remember this one is limited in how many heads that it can spawn. There's something preventing it.
Yeah, I think it's Hydra, because Hydras actually exist in My Little Pony.
Right.
And in fact, the intro quote to the episode from the show is actually the episode where they have Hydras.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, which was Pinky Sense.
But anyways, basically the chapter ends, they're fighting. They got to do it. And Blackjack's like, this place is going to blow. You need to get out of here. Go. And, Rampage is like, whatever. And Glory's like, getting the fuck out of there. And everybody else is like, what are you going to do? And she shoots a tracer round into ammonium perchlorate and blows the whole thing to kingdom. Kills the Hydra, blows up all the chemicals, kills all the baddies. And, nice, clean, tidy way to end the chapter until, why don't you... You mentioned earlier that
she goes to the auto dock again because now she's been blown apart, and pressure waves from explosions aren't good on the brain, kids. So she gets left alone in the auto dock to heal up, and she goes into a memory orb where she has a memory with Big Mac and Maripony, who at this point not very important, but will be important later.
Yeah. And she is Big Mac in this memory.
Yeah, it's from the perspective of Big Mac, and he took it himself. And
right, but I mean, he's an Earth pony, so for him to have a memory orb, he had to have a unicorn extract it. Or did they have a helmet or something that they could
had
wear?
The helmet. That was
right.
Yeah, that was the device they used in the original.
Yeah.
And so she wakes up because she's about to go into it. She's like, the last 2 times I have gone into a memory orb, it has ended up in a disaster, absolute disaster. Probably shouldn't do it this time, but I'm bored.
Yeah,
so
what
let's do it
do I have to lose? Yeah.
Door's locked, everything's fine.
Again, let's also touch, this is a big-ass trope that was already established in Fallout Equestria.
Yeah.
Like, that was Little Pip's downfall, and it seems to be Blackjack's downfall.
I wouldn't say it's a downfall. She still got what she wanted out of the whole deal. I don't know where in the world she was going to go once she found the nursery in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Like, she found the nursery, and they were coming for her. And it's like, what was she going to do? There's several times in the original story where that happens, where Little Pip gets her, like, butt pulled from the fire by happenstance because she was about to do something which she couldn't escape from. That being one, and Monterey Jack being the other that I can remember. Mm-hmm. Anyway, pulling it back, she goes in the memory orb. When she pops out, she realizes she has a bomb collar on her throat. And P21 and U21 are both there, saying hi.
Joy.
In
scene. So, I've pretty much got everything I needed to say from this chapter. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on? I guess we will see where we go next week. Not next week, 2 weeks from now in Chapter 16. Because the way we shoot these episodes, 1 week we do Project Horizons, and then the off week we do Folly of Man, Prey. Why are you putting your finger on your nose?
Hopefully.
I mean, shit's hard, man.
Kinda.
It's not easy. We're trying to be good.
I mean, I'm not throwing this onto you. I'm just saying in general, it happens. Life happens. You know how it is.
So,
if you don't know how it is,
Chris,
you don't have enough on your plate.
If you will, with me, step in, take a step back. And we're going to close the doors on the elevator as we pick a couple floors. And we're going to go down here into the vault. I guess just me.
I'm kind of waiting for you to get to the point.
And come with me as we step into the vault, revealing
stable.
Endless amounts. No, vault, I'm a human. I'm not a pony. Do I look like a pony? I'm not going to a motherfucking stable, okay? And as we step into this, it's a whole row of safety deposit boxes in the vault. And in the biggest safety deposit box in the middle of the room are the friendly words of the Pony Pun of the Week!
Okay.
Well, I brought us in here.
Yes.
I've opened the safety deposit box for the Pony Pun of the Week.
Do I have to read the... Okay, fine. So Why is it that Rarity could get all of the stallions before any other prospective mayor in Ponyville?
Poontang.
She outflanked them.
Outflanked, the pony pun of the week.
Pony pun of the week.
Very nice. It's always something with Rarity being lascivious.
Well, I mean, she is Scarlet O'Hara.
Now, nobody in the show really wears clothing. I know that they, from time to time, wear clothing.
They've actually made the joke of, like, somebody ripping the clothes off of Fluttershy and her covering herself, and everybody going like, what are you doing?
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So there you go, folks.
Visual gags.
There's the pony pun of the week. I know you missed it if you've been watching us on Prey, because we don't do it on that show. So, if you have enjoyed this episode, remember to do the shitty things that they ask you to do on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends. It'd be nice for our subscriber count to go up above the 1,010 that it's been sitting at for like 6 months. But, that's neither here nor there. If you like the content that we make, please support us on Patreon. You can do that. It's a thing that you can do. $1 a month helps me pay for the server and for the editing software, and then eventually maybe get some better equipment.
Yes.
As pictured here. So, if you'd like to
email
us,
echo.
If you'd like to email us, you can reach us at cbpbch@gmail.com. Again, that's cbpbch@gmail.com. Don't ask. The real place that we'd like for you to come hang out with us, and you can see it in the link below, or if you're listening to us, check out the description of this episode, is our Discord channel for the Foley of Man. And it is awesome. We have a really fun time. It's super supportive. Like, I don't want you to think it's like therapy, but it's a cool group.
Yeah.
It's a good group. Lots of fun memes, lots of sharing personal victories. It's like a family. The Foley family. It's welcome to the herd.
That's my line.
I'm sorry. We'll have it. You can have it.
I guess that's actually our line for whenever you finally accept what the truth is.
What's that?
That you actually like My Little Pony.
I am not a brony. That's the whole crux of the show. Chris is a brony. Robert is not. That's it.
Yep.
I am not a brony. I may know more about this shit than some bronies. I may know more about this shit than a lot of bronies. But I'm not a brony. God damn it. I'm not the brony. I'm not.
Tuma.
So, I was going for Tommy Wiseau, but that works too. I don't know. I think that's where you can find us.
Yeah.
So, as we near the end of this path that we've been walking on, Chris, do you have any nuggets of wisdom or something that you'd like to pass on? A word of power, perhaps? Something that someone could focus on in meditation to bring good vibes. That's aren't there trigger words that we're supposed to be adding to these videos, like Pootie Pie and Markiplier and stuff like that makes
Is Markiplier still a thing?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't pay attention to any of them.
There's memes of him. I think Anthony Fantano is probably done. Fantano, whatever.
We don't know.
Potato.
I mean, I'm gonna go with a whole bunch of like idiots of Gary's Box, like 2016 memes or 2006 memes. So,
wisdom. Do you have any wisdom to pass on? Sorry.
Keep moving forward.
You heard it here first. Straight from the horse's mouth.
Nay.
So, thank you for joining us on the Foley of Man Project Horizons. For my buddy Chris here, I'm Robert. This has been the Foley of Man, and we will see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye, guys, gals, colts, fillies, stallions, and mares.
It's all over, but the cry.
Wait, can you say anything if you follow with allegedly?
Hitler did nothing wrong.
Allegedly.
No, I think that still has a sting to it.
Yeah.